the times of Buddha Shakyamuni and later even during the time of Tsongkhapa, the purpose of these protectors had been served to the practitioners and adepts who at those times had strong connection and karma to these protectors. Hello, I would like to greet everybody. A very good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time in your country and place. I've been asked by the European chapter of the Tibetan Public Talk, a forum mainly with a focus on Tibetan people, especially those of the younger generation. And it is with this objective that Geshe Dorje Shugden, has, and Zawa Rinpoche himself also present, has asked me to give a presentation, a very short presentation, and a simple presentation for those who do not speak in the Tibetan language or do not understand the Tibetan language. And of course, the subject here, or the focus of the topic of my speech will be that on the practice of Dorje Shugden, the belief or the practice of reliance on protector Dharmapala Dorje Shugden. So I would like to start in a systematic manner, and in the sense that I have recently devised. I believe it's very important whether we are speaking about beginners or whether we are speaking about people advanced in the path. The general or normal question that comes in the minds of the people occasionally is this. Is the practice of Dharmapala, or protectors as we call them, protectors of faith, in other words, some people tend to say defenders of the faith, is this practice a proper Buddhist practice, or does this practice have any sanction in the Buddhist tradition? Or some have even mentioned that in the common Buddhist traditions, or those of the Theravada and other Mahayana traditions as such, with an exception to the Mahayana Vajrayana tradition of Tibet, to which all the other four great schools, or we are going to have an additional one or two extra more, whatever, with an exception to this school, the other schools do not talk about protector or even the existence of practices or even a belief related to entities or guardians such as defenders of the faith or Dharmapalas. Now, I would therefore like to base a very simple clarification and begin with a very simple explanation on that for the audience. And this is to say that it would not be precisely correct to say that practice of Dharmapalas or protectors as such do not have any legitimacy in the other Buddhist teachings, or there is no mention of protectors or defenders of faith or guardian angels as such. I think this would be incorrect. To be accurate, this would be incorrect. You do see in the history of Buddha Shakyamuni that after he had concluded his practice of the 6 years, months and weeks of austerities, which is generally speaking in the Tibetan language referred to as the Lotukawa, or the practice of austerities, when he had accepted, or when he was about to accept a meal from Sujata, the milkmaid, when he was about to accept a simple meal of milk rice, it is said that prior to that or later to that, I'm a bit unclear about that, but definitely it's around that period, that the four great sovereigns of the four continents, the four directions, generally known as the Dharmarajikas, the four great guardians of the four continents, they were supposed to have presented 4 different bowls, vessels, made out of 4 precious, stones or gems. And this the Buddha is said to have accepted and dissolved and made it into one, into that of the classic begging bowl, which we know of today as made of iron, the black, iron begging bowl, which is circular in Theravadan traditions of Sri Lanka, Burma, and which is slightly oval in the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. Now, in this, he accepted his meal, he accepted his first meal, and he blessed the bowl, and he is supposed to have also set it into the river Niranjana. Now, prior to that, these 4 sovereigns or king guardians had taken a vow or oath in the presence of the Buddha that they would defend, sustain, and provide all assistance and provisions to all those who would sincerely practice the teachings of Shakyamuni, the Buddha, the Tathagata, that they would assist. So the fact that this is a common story, which you do find in the sutra, proves the legitimacy and proves the very rightful position of the fact that Buddha accepted the help and assistance of these 4 guardians for that of the sake of his future students, for that of the sake of his future followers, and not necessarily for himself. So this is just to give the idea or the ground or the foundation of the fact that the practice of Dharmapala, protectors, defenders of faith, or guardian angels, protectors, whatever we want to call them, the idea is Dharmapala or Cho Kyong as in Tibetan. This is not something unique to Tibetan Buddhism. In fact, it can be ascertained from the very little example of the story that I have cited, that Buddha himself had given credence to the first and foremost protectors, generally known as the 4 great kings, the 4 Chatura Maharajikas, Gyabhu Shi in the Tibetan language. Now this is the case. The second issue or question, which often poses as a confusion or a distortion at times, but normally, generally speaking, a doubt that appears in the minds of many people is, why do the teachings need a protector? Why do the teachings need to be protected? Why should the teachings be protected? This is a very common question. Generally speaking, it could come from academical circles. It could even come from the very amateurish, common, populace of Buddhist practitioners as an innocent question or as a very serious academical question. The question is, why does the teachings need protection? How does the teachings happen to need protections? If the teachings itself cannot protect itself, what can it protect others as, or what can it protect the followers as? This is a very common question. To that, I would like to give a very simple presentation and an answer posed as a clarification. Generally speaking, the Buddha's teachings as such, the very nature or the essence of the Buddha's teachings is that of truth, essentially truth. And the very essence of the teachings of the Buddha is the way to the cessation of suffering, the very ultimate way to the cessation of suffering, which is the Buddha's wisdom that he gained, or enlightenment that he gained on the night after he completed his meditation, and in the break of early dawn when he reached enlightenment, he found the answer. He found the truth. Therefore, he became free. He gained not only liberation, which is moksha or dharma, but also omniscience, which is tamje kembesa, as we say in Tibetan, and which we say pravagya in the Sanskrit language. He achieved both liberation and omniscience. He discovered the truth, and this was the truth which he later revealed in the beginning in Varanasi to his 5 noble disciples, the which is normally in the Tibetan known as the Ngade Sangbo Nga, the 5 Noble Disciples. So what he declared was the bridge, or was the vehicle to liberation and to the state of omniscience. So hence, from the very way we understand the nature of the teachings of the Buddha, of course it becomes obvious that the Buddha's teachings does not need protections as such. A Buddha does not need protection as such. So then, where then comes the question or the issue of a protector? Who is the protector protecting? Or what is the Dharmapala actually protecting? When you say defending the faith or protecting the faith, what does a Dharmapala actually protect when there is no need for such a protection? To that, the answer is that when speaking of protection of the faith, it is not about Dharma itself, because Dharma is eternal. The word or the textbooks or the scriptures or the materials incorporating written language of Dharma and written or preserved Dharma, these are material, these are gross elements and objects subject to the law of impermanence. But the Dharma, which is eternal truth, in its own is immortal and is nature of liberation and omniscience. It needs no protection as such. So then the protection required is that of the individual or the practitioner, the candidate or the person concerned who is going to enter the path and who is going to practice Dharma. It is them who need protection. Now when we say it is them who need protection also, what exactly is the nature of protection required by these people? If somebody poses a very simple question as to, do they need to be protected from the weather? Is it from robbery? Is it from delusions or mental afflictions? Is it from harms of diseases and sickness? Or is it from molestation? Or is it from other disasters, natural disasters or calamities or whatsoever? Then the answer to this would be, as an ordinary individual and a beginner in the path, and even somebody in the middle of the path who has not advanced and who has not reached the fruits or the results of the training in the path, such beings do require all the aforesaid protections that I have just quoted. They do require protections from these. But the most important protection that human beings who are necessarily the candidates or the mentioned vessels who will train in the teachings, the most important protection required is that of the protection of their minds. The need for stability, the need for being intent on the path, the need to be able to carry on the path and thereby be saved from dangers, from disasters, from harms, from evil and from other misfortunate conditions. Definitely such requirement or protection is required until an individual practitioner, a sadhaka, we may call it Nanjopa Le Dhangboa, is an initial beginner in the path, a practitioner or one who trains, definitely requires this. And in that context then arises the question, does the Buddha then directly protect, does not the Buddha directly protect such a practitioner or sadhaka? Or is it that somebody else called a protector comes into the question? Then the answer to that is, Buddha, whose nature is, nature of what you call ultimate truth or ultimate reality, absolute reality, whatever you want to call it, Dharmakaya. A Buddha, by virtue of his state, does not necessarily have to put energy or effort into doing anything. But the Buddha can manifest in the aspect of a Dharmapala and protector. Given the fact that Buddhas can appear in animate and non-animate forms to be able to help sentient beings on the path, therefore, for that legitimate reason alone, we can say that a Buddha can appear in the form of a Dharmapala, a protector, and it is also said that protectors or Dharmapalas are necessarily emanations of the Buddhas. So therefore, here comes the role of Dharmapalas and protectors for those who are beginners in the path. And even for those who are advanced in the path, do need to rely on protectors until they complete the training. This explanation that I have given is from the common sutra point of view, and then there is what you call an uncommon tantric point of view explanation, where also the precedence or the legitimacy of protectors is explained. That I would like to speak also about. Now, with regards to the uncommon vehicle or nature of training or practices or teachings that I was just now talking about, it's important to explain that there are various levels and approaches of the teachings of the Buddha, and they are necessarily in the scriptures, especially that of the Tibetan Mahayana Vajrayana tradition, divided into the common path and the uncommon path. The common path is supposed to incorporate the practices of the Sravaka and the Pratyeka Buddha, call it the Hinayana practice or call it the general practice. In short, the common general practice, the common path. These are called the Hinayana teachings. You could also refer to it as the Thavira teachings. The uncommon path or uncommon teachings are those which are known as the Tantric teachings. The only difference between the Sutra and the Tantra is that on the basic level, on the common general level, the three poisons or afflictions have been explained as abandonments. Whereas in the Tantric teachings, they have been taught as a means to achieving the goal of enlightenment, which does not mean that it is an encouragement of afflictions, but it has been taught as a means, as a skillful means. So therefore, this is a very simple, general delineation of what I am trying to say between that of the Sutra and that of the Tantra. Now, with regards to the Tantric practices, here Buddha appears in an uncommon aspect, an uncommon form, which is not that of his usual monastic aspect of what you call a supreme Dhammakaya form, which is called Chogutruku or Paramanirmanakaya, a supreme emanation form as a bhikshu, but he appears in his Sambhogakaya emanation, which is known as Longu in Tibetan, the enjoyment body, and as Vajradhara, he teaches as Vajradhara, emanating as Vajradhara, uniting bliss and emptiness. He teaches the Tantra in the divine aspect of a deity, sometime embraced as with a concert, sometime without a concert. In this aspect particularly, he has taught many different tantras according to the Mantrayana lore, but the most important of these are known to be that of the father tantras, the mother tantras, and that which are called non-dual. Now, within the father tantras and mother tantras and the non-dual, of course, there are many, but generally we classify them as the Yamantaka, the Guhaya Samaja, which is the father, and the Heruka, which is the mother, and the Yamantaka, which is non-dual. And within these tantras also, there are various different aspects. So for each of these various different aspects of divine manifestation, there are protectors. There are different protectors to each of these respective emanations and manifestations. So, given that it is a path unique in itself, each of the techniques revealed and each of the visualizations or the aspect or deity form which Vajradhara, Buddha Shakyamuni as Vajradhara, then assumed in order to help sentient beings according to their mental temperament. It so happens that because these are skillful methods or skillful means to enable disciples or enable candidates to reach enlightenment as quickly as possible, because this is what Mantrayana techniques and teachings are all about. So therefore the most important thing from a Vajrayana point of view becomes the observation of the vows and pledges. Vows, pledges, oath, the secrecy, that is why it is called the secret part, Guhayana. The mantra part, that's why it is called Mantrayana. The indestructible part, that is why it is called Vajrayana. So therefore, adamantine, sometimes described as adamantine vehicle. Now, because of the dangers of breaking pledges and commitments, and because of the dangers of other minor faults and possibilities of other obstacles and disturbances and other possibilities of problems or obstacles arising, therefore Vajradhara in each of the manifested aspect of deity appearing as Dharmapala, different aspects of Dharmapala had become a kind of a reason which is mentioned very clearly in the Vajrayana Tantras. In many of the different kinds of Tantras, you will see each and every of these Tantric aspects of deities have their own respective protectors. Now therefore, if you put it into a nutshell and if you ask, how many protectors there are, you could almost say that as infinite as there are Buddhas, that number of same amount of protectors there should be. But then if a question arises as to if the nature or number of Buddhas is infinite and the nature of number of protectors to become infinite, how do we come to emphasize or locate one principal protector or practice such as that of Dorje Shugden? Definitely that would be a very good question, and the answer to that would be each and every protector has their own time. And each and every different sentient beings have their own karmic imprints, ripening karma and imprints related to each and every of the protectors. Now, just to give you a simple idea of the structure of various kind of protectors, generally speaking, you will see that in the foremost refuge, Tijang Rinpoche, who was a master, who was a great outstanding savant and master in this current 20th century, and who passed away or died or entered into parinirvana in the year 1980, he has given a very wonderful classification or categorization of the protectors. He has put the protectors as follows: those belonging to the father class and mother class. Then within that he has categorized protectors as those gone beyond existence, Jigten Deba. Those within existence, Jigtenba. And those, although whose essence have gone beyond existence, but appears or manifests as within existence. And Dorje Shugden therefore belongs to this last third classification. As we understand, there are three protectors. There are three common protectors, well-known protectors, who during the time of the great savant and master, the scholar adept, Master Tsongkhapa Lobsang Chakpa, who appeared in the 13th century AD, had specifically emphasized on the practices of three protectors. These three protectors necessarily are Mahakala, Vaishravana, and Kalarupa, and they have been called the protectors of the three scope. This three scope here refers to the great scope, the medium scope and the small scope. The great scope, medium scope and the small scope is the categorization in relation to Lamrim, which is called the graduated path to enlightenment, which condenses the essential nature of the whole path and teachings of the Buddha into just three simple categorization. And therefore, these three protectors that I've just now named are considered also to be protectors of the three scope. For example, Mahakala is supposed to be protector of the great scope, Vaishravana is supposed to be protector of the medium scope, and Kalarupa is supposed to be protector of the lower scope. Now, there's a lot to say about that, but unfortunately, we shall, condense the discussion here and summarize it to basically the fact that these protectors are considered to be those gone beyond samsara, Jiktenle Deba. So, apparently, in the times of Buddha Shakyamuni and later, even during the time of Tsongkhapa, the purpose of these protectors had been served to the practitioners and adepts who at those times had strong connection and karma to these protectors. However, in addition to these three came Palden Lhamo, the protector Shri Devi or Mahakali. Now, Shri Devi or Mahakali, as it is, has not been mentioned by Lama Tsongkhapa or has not even mentioned by Buddha Shakyamuni himself. And it is only in the Tantras that you will find that she has been protector since the time of Buddha Dipankara and particularly to that of Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching. But you cannot find any reference to Mahakali in any of the common teachings. Leave aside the four sovereigns. So therefore, when speaking of a protectress like Mahakali, there are even more, many other more protectors that came around those times, and in relation to all the other protectors such as Mahakali, so that I don't have to individually name each of them, there was a strong karmic link or connection or imprints between the people of that era and that time and that of those related to protectresses and other protectors such as Mahakali, not within the category of the protectors of the three scope. Now, since these were names and additional protectors that arose due to karmic imprints and the nature or temperament of requirements of the needs and sentient beings at that time, therefore, you could say also that Dorje Shugden also came around the same time as a need of the hour, as a timely protector. As we normally often talk of Dorje Shugden, we say timely protector, Dubab Tensu, timely protector. So as a timely protector in the need of the hour, Dorje Shugden has appeared, and therefore the importance of Dorje Shugden is very significant because we as sentient beings of this present era and this present generation have strong connections, let us say strong karmic connections with this great protector. The fact that the relevance of this connection is there is obvious from the fact of that people have more proximity to the nature of this practice, and there have been great lamas at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century who said that this was supreme amongst all protectors. Now, when we say Dorje Shugden is supreme amongst all protectors, we don't mean to say all other protectors are useless. When we say Buddha Shakyamuni is the Buddha of our era and our times and he is supreme, we are also preparing for Maitreya Buddha, because by the time Maitreya Buddha comes, Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings will be lost. So therefore, Maitreya will be supreme. Therefore, you do find many of the Mahayana temples, especially those of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, whether you go to a Kagyupa, Sakya or Nyingma or Gelug, you will find that some of the temples or shrines or cathedrals have given Maitreya Buddha greater prominence as he is the central object of devotion. You may ask why. You may say, do they consider him to be more important than Buddha Shakyamuni, or has Buddha Shakyamuni gone out of business, or has he gone out of market? Definitely not so. It is the time of Maitreya Buddha, and we all as Mahayana practitioners prepare for Maitreya Buddha. Dorje Shugden as a protector will remain until the 999th amongst the 1000 Buddhas will appear in this world, and the final 1000 Buddha will be Dorje Shugden himself. Therefore, there is a great era and a great period of time that Dorje Shugden's relevance will become obvious. Now, whether you open the internet, whether you open the YouTube, whether you open websites, whether you look at the Tibetan communities, whether you look at it from the point of view of controversy, or whether you look at it from the point of view of a struggle, whether you call it political, whether you call it religious, whether you call it fanaticism, whether you say sectarian or whatsoever, Dorje Shugden is prominent. Dorje Shugden is there everywhere, whether you like it or not. So, but if you ought to come to an understanding of Dorje Shugden from a very spiritual point of view, you will see a very pure and beautiful side of the story, which unfortunately I have not been able to talk about because I am supposed to give a presentation only for 20 minutes. I would like to thank all of you for listening to me. Once again, I've been requested to give a very substantial, comprehensive explanation of the nature of how to engage in a practice in a very simplified manner and nature of a practice for beginners and people who would find difficulty reading manuals or sadhana or other practice texts as such, which may sort of appear to others, beginners and newcomers, as complex. Now, the practice of Dharmapala or protector, and particularly that of the practice of protector of Dorje Shugden, is nothing complex. It is very simple. When we speak or we say or we talk about practice, what is the meaning of this practice? The meaning of this practice is a reliance. Now, there are various natures and ways and means of reliance on protectors. Now, in relation to particularly Dorje Shugden and the manner of reliance, in the oral pith instructions, related oral pith instructions related to the practices of Dorje Shugden, I think this is nothing exclusive to that of the practice of Dorje Shugden, but it is common to that of the practice of all protectors as such. Now, you can view the protector as a guru. You can view the protector as a tutelar deity, Yidam. You can view the protector as a protector itself. You can view the protector even in a mundane form as a helper, as a brother, as a sister, as a father, as a friend, as an auntie, as an uncle. All these things have been mentioned. Depending on the nature. For example, it is explained that highly realized adepts and practitioners command protectors. They rely on protectors as assistants. So at the beck and command and call of such great adepts, yogis or great masters, protectors are merely servants or attendants. But this is speaking of a very highly advanced nature of practitioner and someone who's almost probably very close to enlightenment, or even those masters who may be enlightened but as appearing in ordinary forms and aspect, have the capacity and have the power to do that. Now, speaking from a very simple, common point of a view, in the case of the practice of Dorje Shugden, the uncommon and extraordinary nature of the practice of Dorje Shugden is certainly exclusively different from that of all other practices, in the sense that if you look at the origin and history of Dorje Shugden, it's unlike any of the other protectors. The common thing about all protectors, when speaking of those gone beyond existence, and even in relation to those as manifesting within existence but their essence as beyond existence, we are speaking about these particularly two categories of protectors, like I have earlier said in the first part of my talk. Particularly these two types. In these two types, all of these emanations of protectors are manifestations of Buddhas themselves. Dorje Shugden has been declared as emanation of Buddha Manjushri, wisdom Buddha Manjushri. But in the explanations and instructions given by various different masters at various times, Dorje Shugden, for example, amongst Sakya practitioners, has also been said to be emanation of the three lords, that is Manjushri, Vajrapani and Avalokiteshvara. In the case of one certain Sakya master, he is explained as being even an emanation of Avalokiteshvara himself. Particularly the masters of this line of lineage that we are followers of has explained Dorje Shugden as being an emanation of wisdom Buddha. So he is in fact Buddha. Also in the story of Dorje Shugden that we find, he has had an illustrious line of a successive lineage of great masters in India and in Tibet. Unlike all of the other protectors who have simply manifested under different circumstances or were reborn in demonic aspects and demonic forms, but have not necessarily had an illustrious line or succession of gurus. Dorje Shugden has manifested both as gurus and as a protector. And essentially because he is, in a sense, one with that of wisdom Buddha and inseparable from wisdom Buddha, therefore he is Manjushri. And as practitioners of the Ganden lineage, Ganden oral transmission lineage, some people tend to call it Ganden close lineage also, but probably the translation Ganden oral transmission lineage is a much more better term. We as practitioners of Ganden oral lineage say the guru is Manjushri, the Yidam or the tutelar deity is Manjushri, and the protector is Manjushri, and they are all necessarily compact as one. So therefore, when you want to rely on Dorje Shugden as a guru, when you want to rely on Dorje Shugden and see his nature as inseparable from Tsongkhapa who appeared and began the Ganden lineage early in the 13th century, then Dorje Shugden being Manjushri is also Tsongkhapa. When you want to meditate on the nature of Dorje Shugden as a tutelar deity and engage in self-generation practices and want to engage in the sadhana or practice of tutelar deities such as Yamantaka or even Vajrayogini or even Heruka or Guhaya Samaja, whatever the nature of practice you want to do, Dorje Shugden appears as protector, as tutelar deities. He is not separate from them. When you want to see him merely as a protector, as it is, then the form or aspect of Dorje Shugden is already there as a protector. Now, what is the reason or a sense of, or the purpose, let us put it this way, the purpose of relying on Dorje Shugden? Essentially, it is to remove outer and inner obstacles in the path and to be able to be successful in achieving one's ultimate goal, immediate and ultimate goals. Immediate goals refer to temporary benefits, the provisions, the requirements for sustaining oneself in cyclic existence, samsara, and the ultimate goals relate to the extraordinary or the supreme goal, which is enlightenment, omniscience. Now the objective and ultimate purpose or the very important purpose of relying on Dorje Shugden is to be able to reach enlightenment. To be able to reach enlightenment, the most important thing we require essentially is renunciation, first and foremost, renunciation. Renunciation is the basis, foundation and heart of all practice. Without renunciation, we cannot enter the path. Therefore, we must generate renunciation, we must take refuge. It is the criteria of refuge that one discriminates between an insider and an outsider. An insider is one who has entered the path of refuge, taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Therefore, one becomes an insider. Outsider is one who does not take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Renunciation becomes the pivotal factor pushing one towards taking refuge. Now, the purpose or objective of taking refuge is fear of samsara or cyclic existence and lower realms, the need to be able to achieve higher states of rebirth. However, we discover that this goal is not substantial. It is a limited goal, that cyclic existence in itself does not have the complete qualities to sustain happiness or supreme happiness. Therefore, seeing that cyclic existence is at fault, we go forth to the goal of liberation, towards liberation. Therefore, we train in the medium scope. We engage in the practices and training and meditations of the 12 interdependent links of origination. Now, when we discover that even that liberation is only a self-sustaining goal, which is selfish, because all sentient beings are by nature or by virtue connected with us, and unless and until one does not achieve the ultimate state of enlightenment or complete Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, a goal or a path is not completely accomplished, not fully sustained. Therefore, we focus on omniscience or enlightenment. So during all these stages of the path, there are obstacles, there are hindrances. Of all these obstacles and hindrances, the most serious ones are what you call of the nature of subtle afflictions, which when an adept or a practitioner increases or accelerates towards higher states of realization, then these afflictions or these nature of obscurations or obstructions become visible. But in a very simple or amateur or a beginner state, there are what you call outer hindrances, obstacles, accidents, sicknesses, disease, poverty, and the lack of abundance and so on. So this is what you call the job or the nature or function of protectors, to remove these obstacles and to provide these provisions and abundance, and eventually at a higher stage to help remove obscurations and afflictions in the path so that one will actually reach enlightenment. In comparison to other protectors, Dorje Shugden is supreme because he is manifestation of Manjushri himself, and therefore he directly helps at all different stages. So therefore the most important purpose or a compact nature of practicing Dorje Shugden is, when you have spiritual guides and master, then you must always think that this spiritual guide and master, the qualified guru or Mahayana teacher, Mahayana Vajrayana teacher that you have, is in fact inseparable from the nature of Dorje Shugden, is inseparable from the nature of the tutelar deity, Yamantaka, Guhaya, Samaja, Vajra, Yogini, Heruka, or whatever your practice might be, is inseparable from the aspect of Dorje Shugden. When you have problems or difficulties, it appears in the aspect of a protector itself. When you want to rely on the path and you want to sustain a path, it appears as the guru. When you want to accomplish the actual training of the path in engaging in the Mahayana practices and techniques, whereby you exchange the three bodies, you engage in the transformation of the three bodies into the three kayas, or what you call Kusum Lamkir in Tibetan, there Dorje Shugden is the tutelar deity. Now this, what you call all compact, inconceivable nature of everything in one, like today, these days we talk of technological equipments. I'm just going to, for the sake of some amusement of the younger generation, I'm going to say, for example, in the future, if we are going to have a gadget which is going to serve as a camcorder, which is going to serve as a camera, which is going to serve as a phone, which is going to serve as a tablet, I think then that's going to be the ultimate technological presentation of the era, which probably Samsung or Apple is going to create. But it's yet not happening. What is happening right now is Dorje Shugden. He is everything combined in one, you know, and his nature is swift. So therefore, I think, you know, internet or velocity of speed of light or whatsoever is still slower in comparison to the swift nature of Dorje Shugden's assistance. Also, his nature is that of enlightenment, so therefore he is wisdom. The more you rely on Dorje Shugden, the more your wisdom increases. His nature is that of compassion. So therefore, if you have no loving kindness, you have hatred and jealousy, that all definitely is removed because of reliance in Dorje Shugden. Also, if you lack skillfulness, because Dorje Shugden is inseparable from the nature of Vajrapani also, your skillfulness increases. I think this compact way of thinking of Dorje Shugden as Guru, tutelar deity and protector, all compact in one, acting as your uncle, brother, sister, mother, father, is a very simple practice. All you need is just an awareness. You do not need a practice manual, you do not need a text, and I hope this serves as a very simple way for people who are busy in their daily lives to just keep this awareness or mindfulness in mind, and definitely Dorje Shugden is going to be of help to all of us and to you also. Thank you very much.